Hi guys, welcome back. So in today's video, we'll be using Streamlit to create a sign up page, then store sign up information in a cloud database, and then later on we'll be using those credentials for logins. So let's get started. Now the first thing, head over to your terminal and inside your virtual environment, type pip install Streamlit, Streamlit Authenticator. And the last dependency will be data. We'll be using it later on in this video. Now, if you don't know how to create a virtual environment, I'll link a video in the description explaining how you can create one. Now, once you have those packages installed, you can see I have two Python files here. I have main and dependencies. So in this file, you're going to create the sign up function so that you can later on use it in main. And we are also going to write some functions for connecting to the cloud database here. So we'll import Streamlit. So we'll import Streamlit as st. We'll also import Streamlit Authenticator as st auth. And we'll also import datetime. And we'll also import regular expressions. We'll be using them for validations. And yeah, we're going to write the sign up function here. It'll be called sign up. And we'll be using Streamlit forms. So with st.forms, and the key will be sign up, and we'll also set clear on submit to be true. So I'm going to create the first subheader here for the sign up form. So st.subheader, and this one will be sign up. We want this one to be green in color, so I'm going to put green here. And then the next one is we need some fields. We need an email field, a username field, a password field, and a confirm password field. So our email field will be equals to st.text input. The label will be email, and the placeholder will be enter your email. And I'm going to copy this and paste it for the username. This one will be username, and then enter your username. And then you also need a password field. So I'm going to put password 1 here. And the label will be password. The placeholder will be enter your password. And because we need this one to be a password field, we set the type to be password. We also need a confirm password field, so I'm going to copy this, and this one will be password 2. The label will be confirm password. The placeholder will be confirm your password. And yeah, now the next thing is we need to store our credentials in a cloud database. Now for this video, I'll be using Data. Data is a cloud database service provider, and I'm actually not affiliated to them. I only realized that they provide us some services, and most of them are free. So open your browser and head over to data.sh. Let me open it. You can see it's the same as this one. Now I had already logged in, so if you don't have an account, you can sign up and then you can log in. So once you have logged in, you'll get this page and click on collections, and here you can create a new collection and give it a name. So I have two collections. I'm going to open this collection and create a new base. Our base will be called YouTube Authentication, or let me call it Streamlit Auth, and I'll click on create. You can see our base is empty, and we also need to add some data here. Now to do that, we'll have to write some functions to insert and get data. Now you can see our base is empty, and we also need the key to connect to this base from our development environment. So I'll click on collection setting and I'll create a new data key. I'll give it a name called key and click on generate. So I'm going to copy this and inside here I'm going to create a new variable called data key. And this one will be equals to the key that we copied. I'll also import the data class. So from data, import data, and we'll initialize our data class. So data will be equals to data, and we'll pass our data key here. And to connect to our base, we'll use data.base, and then we'll pass the base that we created in our browser here. So ours was called Streamlit Auth. So I'm going to copy this and paste it here. Now the next thing is we need some functions to insert data into our database, and I already have those functions written, so I'm just going to paste them here to save on time. Now the first function is called insert user, and this one inserts users into our database, and it picks in it takes an email, a username, and a password as parameters, and return the user upon successful creation. And we also needed a date field to keep track of when users sign up in our application. Now to insert users into our database, we're using db.put. This one is a built-in function inside the data class, and we are passing our email as the primary key, and the username as the username, password is password, and we're also passing the date that the user joins. Now to insert a user, all you have to do is insert user, then you pass the email, maybe test@gmail.com. The username the username is test, and maybe the password can be 123456. So if I run this, you can see, let me refresh here. Now here we have one user inserted, and you can see the credentials match from the ones that you have fed here. And then the next function is fetch users. Now this one fetches all the users in our database and returns a dictionary of users. So if I do fetch users here and print its content, can see we have one user that we have inserted. And the next one is get user emails. Now this one returns a list of emails in our database. So if I run this, we expect to get only this one because we only have one user in our database. Get user emails. Yeah, you can see we have only one email. And get usernames is similar to get emails. It returns the usernames of users in our database. Okay, now before we insert these credentials into our database, we need to do some validation, and we'll be validating the username and the email. I have two functions, one to validate the email and the username. So I'm going to paste them here. The first function is to validate the email, and it takes an email as a parameter and returns true if the email is valid, otherwise it returns false. Now in this function we are using regular expressions, and let me type a sample email here. You can have test at gmail.com. Now this regular expression matches all the alphanumeric characters before the at character, and then we match the at character after that. Then we also match our alphanumeric characters after the at. Yeah. After that we expect a dot, and then we also expect lowercase ASCII characters, and we expect a minimum of 1 character here and a maximum of 3 characters after the dot. And validate username uses the same functionality as validate email, only that you are matching alphanumeric characters for the username, and it returns true if the username is valid, otherwise it returns false. Okay, now you go ahead and do some data cleanup before we insert the information into our database. So let me first put the submit function here, form submit button, and this one is. Now before you go ahead and insert this information in our database, we need to see how our template looks like. So this is our file. It is called dependencies. We also have main here. So I'll open our virtual environment, and inside scripts I'm going to open the CMD from here. So I'll activate our virtual environment. To run our dependencies file, I'll first have to call this function here, sign up. So Streamlit run dependencies.py. Yeah, you can see it has started, and this is our sign up template. It looks like this, and we need these ones to be blue in color. So what I'll do, I'm going to go back to our and change this. So this one will be blue, and we also need this one to be blue, and this one. also need to set this one to be blue in color. So blue. So if I refresh, yeah, you can see they are blue in color. And this button, I want it to be at the center. So I'm going to create 5 buttons here. st.columns and set that one to be 5. Then you'll use button 3. Let me refresh and see. Yeah, it's at the middle. So the next thing is we are going to add data into our database, and before that we need to do some cleanup. So if you have an email, if that email is valid, we pass our email here. We'll check. The next thing is if we have an email, if that email is valid, we are going to check if the email already exists. We are going to check if the email already exists in our database. Get user emails. Otherwise, if the email is not valid, you tell the user that their email is not valid. And if the email is not in the emails in the database, we're going to check the validity of the username. So if validate username, pass the username here, and if the email is in the database, you'll tell the user that their email already exists, so they can switch and use another email. So st.warning email already exists. And if we validate the username, we need to check if the username is in our database, because we need our usernames to be unique. So if not, if username not in, get usernames. Otherwise, if the username is not valid, tell them that their username is invalid. And after that, if the username is not in the database, we'll go ahead and check the length of that username and make sure it is greater than 2 characters. Is greater than. We need our usernames to be at least 2 characters long. And if the username is in our database, we'll tell the user that that username already exists. And that username already exists. So username already exists. And if the length of the username is greater than 2, we'll go ahead and check the validity of the password. Otherwise, so we'll check if the length of the password is greater than 6 characters. Need at least 6 characters, so I'll put 6. And if the length of the username is not greater than or equal to 2 characters, we'll tell the user that their username is too short. So tell them that the username is too short. Okay, if the length of the password is greater than or equal to 6 characters, we'll go ahead and check if password 1 matches password 2. Otherwise, we'll tell the user that the password is too short. And if this one is correct, we check if password 1 and password 2 are the same. So if password 1 is equal to password 2, we'll go ahead and add this user into our database. Otherwise, we'll tell them that their password do not match. Now let's first test this one before we add them into our database. So to do that, I'm going to refresh and try signing up. Okay, I'm going to add a email here, test at Gmail, and try signing up. You can see that the email already exists because we have created it previously. So test1 at gmail.com, and the username will be maybe John. So let me try signing up. See, password is too short because we did not feed the password field. So I'm going to just put some valid credentials, and the password is maybe 1 2 3 4 5 6, and let's mismatch them. Our validation is working perfectly. So before we add our user into our database, we need to hash the password because we don't want to store our passwords as plain text. And to do that, we'll be using the Streamlit Authenticator library. So our hashed password will be equals to stmouth.hasher, and then we'll pass our password to, then we'll generate the hashed password. And to insert our user into our database, we use the insert user function. First the email, the username, and the password, and our password will be equals to this hashed password. stauth.hasher returns a list of hashed passwords, and because we only passed one password here, we'll be getting the password at index 0. So I'll be using hashed password at index 0. If we had multiple passwords here, like password maybe 5, and we want to get the hashed password for this one, could use at index 1. So here I'm using index 0. And then once our user is inserted, we need to tell the user that their account has been created successfully. So I'll use hasty.success and tell them that the account has been created successfully. And we also need some balloons. So we'll try inserting one user here. So their email will be test1@gmail.com. The username will be John and the password will be 123456 and 123456. So I'll sign up John. You can see the account has been created successfully. If we go to our collection and refresh, you can see we have another user called John here and their password is hashed, so we don't have plain text passwords in our database. And the next thing is we need to write functionality for logins. So I'm going to comment out that because our sign up function is working perfectly. And I'll also stop this one. So inside our main, we are going to write our login functionality. So the first thing is I import Streamlit as hasty, and the next one is Streamlit Authenticator as hasty auth, and no hasty auth. My god. And we also need some functions from this module. So I'll be taking the sign up function and the fetch users function. So from dependencies, import sign up, and we'll also import the fetch user function. So I'm going to set up the page configurations for our Streamlit app. So st.set page config, and we'll set our page title to be Streamlit. Page icon will be a user emoji. I'm going to use, let me use this one. And the initial sidebar state will be collapsed. So collapsed. So the next thing is we need to write a try block here. Okay, so once you have that one, we need to fetch all the users in our database. So users equals to fetch users, and we also need emails. We need a list of emails from our users, so our emails equals to an empty list, and the usernames equals to an empty list too, and the passwords equals to an empty list. Now to feed in these credentials, I'm going to look through the users. I'm going to look through the users dictionary. So for user, in users, I'm going to append emails.append the user email. During inserting data, we set our email as the primary key, so we'll be using this to get the email. So that's why I'm going to write key here, and I'll also append the usernames. Username, and the password user. Now the next thing is we need to authenticate users using these credentials, because these are the credentials in our database. Now to do that, Streamlit requires that you create a YML file, and this should be the format of that file. You'll have credentials, username, jsmith, and so on. These are the users. For this particular video, we'll not be creating a YML file. I'm going to create a dictionary using this format, and to do that, I'm going to create a credentials dictionary. And I'll set the first key to be usernames, and its value will be a dictionary. I want to create several dictionaries here where the keys will be the usernames and the values will be another dictionary containing key value pairs of the email and the password. So to do that, I'm going to look through the emails. So for index in range, the length of the emails, so I'm going to populate these credentials. So credentials and usernames, and then I want the username at this index to be the key for this particular dictionary, and I'll set the values for this one to be a dictionary where the name will be the email for this user. So I'm going to take emails at this particular index, and the password will be the password of this particular user. So passwords at this particular index. This one is emails. So let me run this so that you guys can see the structure of the credentials dictionary. Yeah, you can see you have usernames and the key is John, and then you have the credentials for John, and you have test, you have the name as the email, and the password is the one that we set. So the next thing is we need to authenticate these users. So we'll be using Streamlit Authenticator for this. So authenticator equals to stauth.authenticate. We'll pass in credentials, and the cookie name will be Streamlit, and the key will be maybe ABCDEF, and we set the cookie will expire after maybe 4 days. And the next thing is we need a login form where users will feed in their credentials and get logged in into our app. So we'll be using the we'll be using the authenticator variable, which has a built-in form. So I'll use authenticator.login, and the name of this will be login, and it will be located inside our main body. And we also need this one to be green in color, so I'll put this and put green here. Login form returns a tuple of 3 values, that is the email, the authentication status, and the username. And the authentication status is normally true if the user has been successfully validated and their credentials are right, and it's false when the credentials are not correct, none when no credentials have been passed. So I'm going to assign the values here. So I'm going to create 2 columns here to inform the users of their authentication status. The first one will be called info, and maybe info1, st.columns 2. So the next thing is we need to check the user's credentials so that we can allow them into our app. So if you have a username and the username is in our database, is in usernames, and the next thing is we'll check the authentication status. So if the username is not in our database, we'll tell the user to sign up. So st.running, username does not exist. Then you tell them to sign up. And if the username is in our database, we'll check the authentication status. So if authentication status, that means the credentials of this particular user are correct, we are going to let the user to see the app. And otherwise, else, if the authentication status is false, we're going to tell them that their credentials are not correct. So incorrect password or username. And I think this one should be error. And the third situation is the authentication status is none. So I'm going to tell the user to feed in their credentials, because if this is the case, that means that the form is empty. So please feed in your credentials. So here we are going to let the user see the app. So I'm going to write st.subheader, because this is the home page. We're also going to put some markdown. And maybe I'm going to create 3 lines. Now this one means you put an horizontal line. Then I'm going to write created with maybe some emoji here by Snakebite. Created. And you can also write something in our sidebar. So I'm going to write st.sidebar and maybe welcome who? Welcome user. Welcome. Then you're going to feed your username here. I'm using the F string to format this. And you also need a logout button, and it will be placed in our sidebar. So authenticator dot logout. This one will be called logout, and it will be in our sidebar. And yeah, I think we are done with these ones. This one should be sign up. I was wondering why it's formatted badly. So I'm going to import, I'm going to change this one. So the last thing is we also need to display our sign up page, and we'll be displaying the sign up page if the user is not logged in into the app. So in that case, the authentication status is false. So to do that, we'll be using the authentication status variable. So if authentication status, if not authentication status, we display the sign up. Okay, I think we are done now. So I'm going to run this app. So I'm going to open the terminal and use Streamlit. So I'm going to use Streamlit run main.py. So this is the main page. You have the login form and the sign up form. So users can come and log in here, and they can also sign up from here. I'm going to try logging in, and you can see that this one comes at the bottom after the sign up. So what we need to do is I'm going to use the info buttons that we created. So else with info. And then I'll also create this one using info. So it's info. Then with info. So info is the columns that we created here at the top. You can see they come before the sign up function. So these ones will be, so these columns will be displaying the status of the authentications. Now, if I try logging in, you can see that it is displayed before the sign up. So I'm going to create another account, and it will be called test2. The username will be, the email will be test2@gmail.com. The username will be test2. The password will be 1234567 and 1234567. So let me sign up. You can see that that account has been created successfully. So I'm going to log in with it, test2, and the password is 1234567. So click on login. I think there is some issue here. st.markdown, st.sabeda. Okay, I think the issue is here, so it should be st.sidebar.subheader. let's refresh again and see. And yeah, perfect. You can see it's working perfectly. So if I click on the sidebar, you can see welcome test 2, and we can log out. I'm going to sign up with John, and the password is 123456. Click on login, and yeah, you can see you are also logged in there. And welcome John. Log out. Now you can see that our session has been saved. You cannot go back and forth from here. If I try refreshing in our database, you can see you have test 2. This user has been added successfully. And if I go back, this is our page. And that's it for today's video, guys. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.